Congress today that talks about protecting certain federal lands, absolutely, as they should. But first and foremost, we need to talk about maintaining those. Who has the ability to maintain those, and how can we best preserve them so that folks can use them on a regular basis, take pride in them. There are many wonderful things out there, and ensure that for the long term, if they're here for, I have a great granddaughter, which wasn't in your piece there, but so that they have the ability to use those 100 years
from now. All right, next question is for Steve. This has to do with the rooftop solar controversy. As I'm sure we're all aware of, it's a multi-part question, so I'm not going to repeat any of it. Do you think the legislature got it right taking the decision to modify the net metering cap to the Public Utilities Commission in the last legislative session? What role would you, as county commissioner, recommend? What would you, as county commissioner, recommend to the next legislature if elected? And how would you balance or recommend balancing giving the subsidy to rooftop solar customers who need to rate theirs as a whole?
Yeah, well, thank you all for coming out, by the way, and I can participate in this today. Riley, could you repeat the first part of that question?
Yeah, the first part was, do you think the legislature got it right in taking the net metering decision to the Public Utilities Commission?
Absolutely not. I think the legislature failed to demonstrate necessary leadership when it comes to rooftop solar in the state of Nevada. I think the Public Utilities Commission got it wrong. I think the governor, who oversees that Public Utilities Commission and appoints those members, should have stepped in and demonstrated that necessary leadership to make solar a priority in southern Nevada. That's what I think. Now, your second question.
The second part of the question was, what would you as county commissioner recommend to the next legislature?
Well, I'm actually doing something different in the city of Las Vegas right now. I am sponsoring an ordinance that will create an energy improvement district, similar to a special improvement district. So we can bring rooftop solar back to the city of Las Vegas, and I'm hoping the other local governments pay attention and watch how we do this, because I've already spoken to authorities in Boulder City who agree with what we're trying to do in the city of Las Vegas. So we're moving forward regardless of that decision by the PUC, and I think we're going to see some significant issues coming up, especially with a lot of these ballot initiatives.
Any response? Because I have two. Okay, I'd like to opt you.
Last week when the legislature, she can respond directly to that now.
Unless you want to ask me.
Well, it's the same question basically. During the heated exchange with some solar lobbyists,
Sorry, I should have it attached to me. Last year during the legislature, you decried the solar industry's lobbying tactics and had some pretty heated exchanges with some lobbyists, excuse the pun. And you said it was clear in 2007 what the expectation was. It was always our intent to back down the subsidies. Given the loss of jobs since then, do you now regret punting that to the PUC?
Here's what I would tell you. It's a complicated issue, no matter how you look at it. We started in 2007 and sponsored large-scale solar, which has done well. It's brought over $5 billion to Nevada as a whole. We worked in 2009 to bring the net metering on board to give it the jump start as we wanted, like with any industry, at some point, give them the jump start to get going. But what I will tell you is, for us at the legislature, after we talked to many of the solar folks, they felt that the legislature was did not have enough knowledge about net metering as a whole. When you look at 63 legislators, and they asked, and they had testified that they wanted the PUC to make the decision. So unfortunately, what I will tell you is the legislature did give away their ability, and the next legislature should be able to get their authority back and address it. And I would caution, I'd love to have more details on the government piece, because in 2009, the federal government stopped that particular program, allowing government to make loans on rooftop solar because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were not able to give those loans. So there's more details, and so I would believe that the legislature is going to address it. I believe that the PUC has been in over 12 years to give the legislature enough time to get their authority back.
Okay,
rebuttal there, so there's a full question. There you go.
Good evening. Wow, I sound really loud. Yes. I like your name, Steve. Talk to me a little bit about, I'm sure you noticed it, driving in the Exit 118 project there in Mesquite. Certainly the city would like to see that become part of a economic boost for this area, and I know there's a lot.
Parkway, all the way to Kyle Canyon Road, and then all the way into the Pioneer Indian Reservation to do exactly what.
Okay, back to you, John.
Okay, and I'm going to change the order up here so that I get to ask Steve a question, and we'll alternate who we're asking questions to. Steve, Many Commission, we're going to talk tonight a lot about, say the word Democrats a lot, because this is a group of Democrats trying to choose the Democratic candidate for this office. So when I talk about Democrats, I'm not ignoring that there's another party somewhere in this country we just don't care about. Many Commission B, District B Democrats have felt pretty neglected by former Commissioner Tom Collins. I've been here 5 years. I don't recall of ever holding or attending a meeting with him in Mesquite. In the 5 years I've been here, how will you treat? How will you decide and assure us that you can represent and be available to Mesquite and rural Democrats?
Thanks, John. Whenever he asks me a question, I shudder a little bit. Just kidding. There's a few people in this room that know me well enough to know my leadership style. My wife Kelly's here tonight with me as well, supporting my efforts to become your next county commissioner. We are in our neighborhood and in our ward every single day, working with whether it doesn't matter whether they're Democrats or Republicans. I didn't want to use that word, Doug, because I know that offends a few people in here. But we care so much about our community, about our neighborhood, about our children and our grandchildren, about the businesses that are in the district that we work very hard to support. You have my same commitment. In fact, I committed that to you.
Fairly simple that you could put in order quickly. At the end of the day, it really has to be about ensuring that the consumer, our tourists, get the proper ride at the proper price so that they can come to our state. In Mesquite, you all are focusing much more on tourism. You have your voice on the Las Vegas Convention Authority, and so it is important that we get people from that airport out here, and many times taxi ride to somewhere along the
Councilman Joe Lombardo, Sheriff Joe Lombardo wants another $2 million for Metro Police. Are you in favor of giving him that money? If so, where would it come from?
Just a little background on that. Thank you again for that question. The city of Las Vegas pays about 40% of Metro's budget, and Clark County pays about 60% of Metro's budget, plus or minus a few dollars in there. Every year, I've never seen the sheriff, any sheriff, come to the city or the county and say, hey, I want less this year. And it just doesn't happen. And it certainly is not happening this budget cycle as well. But I can tell you this. The Clark County Commission should have approved the voter-approved tax increase with more cops on the streets. I've supported that from day one with Mayor Goodman. I support it today. He probably would not be going through this process about wanting $10 million. I don't believe what Clark County did. Incrementally increasing the tax is enough. We need more cops on the street today. Thank you, Dave.
So do you support? Would you
Absolutely. How we fit that into the budget is another story. Supporting is one thing, paying for it's another.
How would you pay?
I'd have to certainly take a look at our budget. I know my discussions with my city manager is somewhere in the middle of that. So it's always a negotiation with the sheriff, just like any department head, whether it's the city or the county. The manager says, hey, cut your budgets, or don't let me have your budgets. So I do support it, Dana. Certainly for the tourists, the 42 million people that come to the city every year, we're pushing for 43 this year. There's certainly not enough police officers on Las Vegas Boulevard.
Good evening, Marilyn. Talk some, please. You touched on something that I was going to ask anyways about tourism and about finding ways to drive some folks from Las Vegas out to Mesquite. Throw me an example or two of how you may be able to help a process like that move along.
So honestly, we're already having those discussions, and what I will tell you, there's a large event, an Australian event that is coming to town that's about music. And one of the places that we've asked them to come is to look at Mesquite. We know that Mesquite has a big sports love that people come to all the time, so we're doing everything that we can to ensure that Mesquite itself has the tools to provide the space and the rooms, as well as all of the needs that come along with those conventions. So we've already been working in that direction to ensure that Mesquite Sports Complex, they have one of the most amazing sports complexes in the state, and we would like to see it grow, and we're seeing tourism grow as a whole out here. In conjunction with that, we're also working with the workforce so that we can ensure that we have the growth of the workforce as tourism grows.
Okay, now we're going to switch back. So Marilyn, let's talk Nevada, along with, I would assume, the other media have been listening for several weeks, and our readers give us questions that they want to have asked of our candidates. So this question is from one of our Let's Talk readers. Mrs. Kirkpatrick, as Speaker of the Assembly in 2014, you had amassed a significant war chest of campaign funds in your Assembly District Campaign Funds account. But you were termed out of any more campaigns by you for the State Assembly. You didn't use much of that those campaign funds war chest to help fellow Democrats retain their seats. You recently transferred about $275,000 of those funds from your Assembly District campaign account to your campaign for this county commission race. Do you feel any responsibility for the Democrats who lost control of the State Assembly in 2014 for not helping them out anymore?
So what I would explain, and I'm not sure that many folks here would understand, we have the ability to set up PACs. That's a political action committee, and you can go and look at that. It's the Western Leadership PAC, and I did donate money to many of our caucus members, as well as our candidates that were running. We spent thousands of dollars trying to get phone banks, trying to get Democrats engaged. What I will say is 29 legislatures across the country flipped. We were working, we were tirelessly out there. All of the money in the world, I don't know, would have driven Democrats out at some point. But what I would say is I spent tons, and it's more about money. It's more than just about money. It's about getting people out, getting people to the polls. We were driving people at 6 o'clock on that night to the polls in all districts. I walked several districts myself outside of my own district. So I believe that the Assembly worked very hard. I believe they're very determined to get the majority back this time, and as I've always mentored and helped many of them, I would definitely help ensure that that happens, because without basically Democrats being in charge or the Senate in one house, there's a lot of things that we as Democrats stand to lose. Last time we worked very hard to protect the things that we value so much. So I will tell you that we're all working in the same direction this time.
Okay, the next question is for Steve. This, do you think that the Park County Commission should, like the city of Las Vegas, ban quote-unquote puppy mills, which for the audience, that is defined as the retail sale of any pets not obtained from animal shelters, nonprofit humane societies, or nonprofit animal rescue organizations? And if yes, how would that be fair to people who own pet stores and people who breed?
I don't think it would actually, and that bill or that ordinance in the city of Las Vegas that was passed, I voted against, because there is one store that would affect in the city of Las Vegas in Oak Park, and that's all that really did. It didn't affect any puppy mills anywhere in this country. It injured one business and they had to lay off employees, so that bothered me a great deal. I'm a big job supporter. We just came out of the most horrific recession any of us are going to see in our lifetime. So the loss of one job is unacceptable to me. I think other things could be done in regards to the puppy mill issue, instead of just banning puppies from puppy mills in pet stores. There's a lot of opportunities, and many of you probably have adopted a pet, and that's a great thing, and probably the best animal that you've ever had in your life. Certainly my wife and I have had that experience as well. But we've also bought dogs from puppy stores that have been fabulous pets. We've even bred dogs ourselves with champion dog breeders. So I get that experience, I get that understanding, but that bill, or that ordinance had nothing to do with shutting down not one puppy mill in this country.
Commissioner, same question to you on the police request for $10 million. Would you support it? Your opponent says that the county should have passed that sales tax increase. If support it, where would you get the money?
Here's what I would tell you. Since 2005, I helped write the legislation with Commissioner Kihuen so that we could ensure that we had more officers on the streets, as well as the strip, but in our neighborhoods. Right? That was part of the bill that many of them had to be in the neighborhood. What I would say is, in the legislature, we tried to do it several times. It's a matter of county remembrance. I supported what was before the county commission because at the same time, especially folks in Mesquite, there were not enough police officers. All and they have without that did not public foremost on anybody's mind, whether you're a tourist coming in, whether you're a resident who's been here. What I'm telling you is I've been working for a long-term solution, which is looking at a funding source that is there for all the time. Because when growth happens, it's not always going to come from sales tax. It's going to come from residents, and I believe that everybody should be part of the solution. So we're already talking about the $10 million. We also know that property tax is going to come in low next year, so we are looking for different abilities to pay, whether it's one-shot money. So we are working in the Southern Nevada Forum as a whole to find a public safety funding mechanism for 20 years from now.
I'll talk a little bit about the Clean Indoor Air Act. There's a group here in Mesquite that is quite vocal about wanting to ban smoking inside of casinos here. Local jurisdictions do have a lot of control with the Clean Indoor Air Act now. What's your sense on that debate, and where do you stand on that issue?
Who likes going into a smoky casino? Raise your hand. I know, you guys probably smoke, I understand. It's a significant issue nationwide, I mean, for smoking anywhere in public. And I think that a lot of casinos have the ability to adjust to that customer and to that client. If you think about our airport, McCarran International Airport, they've got areas for the passengers to smoke, that the air scrubbers is what I call them, get rid of the smoke. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think that's what the general consensus of the population is going to want. We've done it in taverns. and some taverns cheap. I'm sure you've all been in some that do. You see people smoking, and that's just how it is. The smoking police aren't out there every day to catch you. But it's a significant issue right now. I mean, the public health is serious right now when it comes to smoking. So I fully support it.
Okay, Steve, let's continue with this smoking thing. There being a vote this November on the legalization of recreational marijuana in Nevada.
I'm on fire.
If it's approved, Clark County will obviously be the focal point of the new industry. And the border cities, such as Mesquite, will also be significantly impacted if that ballot initiative is approved. Do you favor or oppose the recreational use of marijuana in Nevada?
You know, I'm not a big fan of narcotics to begin with, and I'm not going to call marijuana a narcotic because it does have the health benefits for a lot of people suffering some serious, significant illnesses. I think it's the wave of the future. A lot of things are changing in our day and age, and I think that ballot initiative is going to be approved. I honestly think they have the votes today to make it a reality in Nevada. My issue is this: when the legislature forced upon the local governments that they had to deal with this instead of the legislature, the state taking responsibility and demonstrating leadership on this issue, they pushed it down to local governments. When that happened, I said, let's do this, City of Las Vegas. Let's go to Clark County and the other municipalities, and let's have across the board, all of our regulations are all the same. And that's not what happened. When our staff went over to Clark County said, no, thank you. We'll do our own Las Vegas. And that bothered me. Because now we've had a set of standards in the City of Las Vegas for medical marijuana, and the county has a different set of standards right now for medical marijuana, and we're having to deal with that and adjust to that. In regards to the recreational, I think we all have some apprehensiveness about it. I think it's a significant issue. But I also think that people who want to smoke marijuana are doing it anyway recreationally, whether we are letting them or not. Should we not be gaining tax revenue on that? Perhaps that's the revenue we need that needs to go into our police departments or our education or something to that effect. Thank you.
Marilyn, same question. Do you support the recreational marijuana?
Here's what I would say. You know, at the state level, you're always trying to give local government the ability for the folks that are closest to decide whether or not that they want some of these things in their neighborhood. And I will tell you that out of the 17 counties, about 6 of the counties decided that they did not want to participate in the medical marijuana. So as much as local governments wants authority, we try to give it to them while I was at the state, and that is the reason why. I do believe that times are changing, and I do believe that recreational marijuana is coming. What I would hope is that, and I know that the state is already looking, the county and many social services were looking to see what that impact is going forward. How will we test our employers? How will employers be responsible for handling that? Workman's comp. So there are always other things that we have to address when these ballot initiatives come before the local jurisdiction.
We have about 10 to 15 more minutes in this debate, and I remind you, neither one of you used your 30-second rebuttal. If you want to use it, you're welcome. Go ahead.
Councilman, back in, I believe, 2014, you supported Mayor Goodman's proposal to use several $100 million of city money. It was a residual room tax money that was in an interlocal agreement with the county, money designated for parks, and you were going to give it to a private company to develop a sports arena, a soccer arena in downtown Las Vegas. When you are on the county commission, if you become, if you win this election and are on the county commission, would you still support using that money for purposes other than parks?
It was $50 million, Dan. I remember it very clearly, and yes, I support it wholeheartedly. I will say this, that Sheldon Allison wants to use $485 million of public money to build his stadium. So it's not good for the city to make a proposal like this, but it's okay for a casino mogul to make that kind of proposal, and it's a good idea.
Well, he's not voting. He doesn't have a vote.
No, I understand that. I support public-private partnerships. And when there's a job created and a new economy created, I'm in full support of that. We spent a lot more money on the Smith Center for Performing Arts than we were planning on putting into that soccer stadium. We put a lot more money, public money, into the Premium Outlet Mall, which, by the way, is the most successful Premium Outlet Mall in the country. And if you can't find a parking place, you'll know why. So all of those public-private partnerships have been fabulous, successful ventures for the city of Las Vegas and those private investors as well. We have the most robust economic development department anywhere in the country. Clark County does not have one anymore. They got rid of it for some reason a long time ago. There are golden opportunities in Clark County to create jobs, to create new economies, and to put people to work.
How are those incentives fair to, I understand, like the World Furniture Center has benefited greatly.
Yeah, they have to.
What about Walker Furniture over on Martin Luther King? They never got any incentives.
They did not, and they're in a very precarious position right now because unfortunately, they're gonna lose that large building that's gonna be part of Project Neon once that begins, the widening of the Centennial Bowl, so that's gonna be a challenge.
But I'm just saying in general, why should government be in the business of picking winners and losers?
I wouldn't say it's a business of picking winners and losers. So far, the city's won on every one of their public-private partnerships and where they've invested those tax dollars into an industry. The Smith Center for Performing Arts is a good example of that. That will continue to grow this in our area.
Marilyn, your greatest quality, what would you say is your greatest quality in how you represent people?
First and foremost, I'm boots on the ground all the time. So what I would say for those folks in the rural part of District B is very large. We've been out here several times. We're working, we're talking with all of the needs that are important. So for instance, tomorrow we have on the agenda, and I've been working with the city of Mesquite to ensure that the senior citizen funding happens for Mesquite, that the Parks and Rec money, that the grants that are available for them. So I am truly really about making sure that the everyday person has the services that they need to be successful. We've already worked with the workforce development so that they can come out here to ensure that people are successful at what they do. Good citizens do so much in return for the long term, for the economy, for themselves. And so one of my best qualities is relationship building. Since I've been had the relationships with the state, I've been able to already save a position with the mental health that we had in Mesquite. It was going to go completely away. We saved it for 1 day a week, but we've been able to bring more things to the table because we do work across the aisles and talk to different governmental agencies.
Okay, last time down the road here, John?
Okay, Marilyn, well, Steve got 2 questions in a row on smoking, so it's your turn now. This is another question that was sent in by one of our readers. There was a ballot question in 2006 that was approved by voters that generally disallowed smoking in taverns that serve food. In 2011, you voted in favor of Assembly Bill 571, which significantly weakened that prohibition, and that had been approved by voters. Assembly Bill 571 was opposed by the American Cancer Society, Action Network, the Nevada State Medical Society, and the Nevada Tobacco Prevention Coalition, among others. During the years from 2009 to 2014, you received 7 campaign donations from Altria, the parent company of Philip Morris. Do you favor allowing smoking in public places?
Here's what I will tell you, and I will disclose I am a smoker, but I will tell you for every pack I smoke, several dollars go to education as well as many of the other social services. Tobacco dollars bring in social services for many, and we've relied on them in our state since 2005, and those dollars are dwindling. But what I will tell you is the real issue that came about was that, honestly, when it was set in place, some businesses were in and some businesses were out. So many of the mom and pop taverns, restaurants were being forced out of business because they did not have the ability as some of the larger businesses to participate. And when you're a business that's close to many of our large tourists, where many of our international folks do smoke, there was not the ability. We did not get help from the health district to put in a set of rules that worked, that benefited both sides, so that you could have, as Councilman Ross said, in some areas where you could have smoking and some you could not have smoking. And so those laws were very skewed. So this was an ability for the business owners to decide what kind of businesses they wanted to be, so that it gave them that flexibility.
All right, Steve. The Legislative Council Bureau has said that local governments can't impose special taxes or fees on ride-hailing companies like Lyft and Uber, yet Clark County charges a $25 business license fee for those individual drivers for those companies. Given that Lyft has filed suit against the city of Las Vegas, do you think the county should change its position? And what in general do you think is the best way to ensure that these companies can operate smoothly and bring peace with the county?
Well, for me, Uber and Lyft, the issue for me was actually public safety. If you know a little bit of our taxi cab companies, they are a totally different animal, regulated by a totally different agency in the state, in Clark County to begin with. And, they pay off, they drug test their drivers, they background test on the drivers, and Uber and Lyft aren't doing it. So a big issue for me was that element of the random drug testing, DOT drug testing requirement, and then the background checks before you jump into that vehicle, because you don't know who you're jumping into that vehicle with. So what we did at the city, we kind of followed suit with the county a little bit, because we've imposed our own licensing fee, but we made it like other businesses, like the legislation says. And I think the only way to the bottom of this issue is that one of them files suit against one of the governments to find out how this ends up in court. And then that would be the defining factor for all of us as to how we move forward with that. But I can't tell you this, transportation is changing. Just like energy is changing. People are going to want solar. They're not going to want to use power from that power plant 50 miles down the road. Technology is changing so quickly. Everything is changing right now in our lifetime. It's kind of exciting if you think about it on the edge. You can't get a taxi out in Centennial Hills, and if you do, it takes an hour to get there. But you can get an Uber or a Lyft, because I've got both apps on my phone and I can see where those cars are. So, but it's how we regulate that and how we protect the public is the most significant and important thing.
Commissioner, the local governments in Southern Nevada are projected to lose out on about $400 million in tax revenue this year because of the property tax cap. Make the case why these residents should no longer have the property tax cap.
Really, what I will tell you is since it was in place in 2005, when many of the local governments at the time came to the state legislature and said, we need some relief for many of our property tax owners because their taxes are growing exponentially. So we put some legislation in place in 2005. What I will tell you today is, yes, property tax is going to come in very low. It's going to come in 0.007. But I believe that the part of the formula that we need to focus on is the commercial piece, not the residential. The residents have been paying the 3% since it was enacted. The commercial has not always been at the 8% as alluded to by the legislative intent. So the last 2 years it was at 8%. After that it went to 3%. Then now it is projected to come in at 0.007%. So what I will tell you is there are many commercial buildings that are paying less than many of you folks on your residential home. So been trying to fix the formula for the last couple of years. I believe that people now see that it is a big issue. It affects public safety, it affects social services, it affects many things that we do on the county as well as some of the cities. I mean, foster care still exists, mental health still exists. Those are all responsibilities as a county commissioner that you still have to provide those services.
30-second rebuttal. Thank you. I was around in 2005, and I don't recall that any local government went to the legislature and said, please help us, we're getting too much tax revenue. I don't remember that conversation one bit because I was there. I can tell you this, because of those property taxes, every government agency in this state that relies on property taxes is going to be in a deficit for the next 3 years, and that's a scary proposition. And hopefully the legislature fixes it once and for all. Thank you.
All right, Steve, same question that I asked Marilyn last time. What do you feel like is your greatest quality as a representative for people?
I would think my accessibility and my engagement with the people that I represent, whether they're in the city or the county. In my district, there are a lot of county islands, and those rural folks, those county islands have a lot of the same issues that in regards to needing representation, and I spend a lot of time working with them as well, and they can't even vote for me. As a city councilman, they certainly can as commissioners. And that's just one of my characters. I mean, my wife really keeps me grounded, as my children do, in regards to what my responsibilities are, not only to them, but to the people I work for and the people I represent. And I have fun doing it. If you have a problem, let me help you fix it. That's where I get my joy from the service I provide to the citizens of the city of Las Vegas, and I'm really looking forward to that, provide that to you as well in the street. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the questions. Somehow I skipped over the 1 minute opening remarks, so you're welcome to take more than a minute now. Marilyn, go ahead.
Honestly, you did a fine job. I do have 7 grandkids and 1 great-granddaughter now, so.
I'll update that for the next debate.
Yep, but what I would say is, I appreciate all of you coming out, being engaged, being part of the process, because that's really what we need to hear. But regardless of where we go from today, it's important that we as Nevadans and as Park County residents, that we stay together to provide the services that are necessary for each and every one. What I will tell you is, I've worked on all different issues. It's a new thing, Commission District 2, and we have really been working hard to make sure that voices are heard across the valley. We have heard the mental health issues. We have heard the public safety issues. And just right here, but just down the street, it's flooding. It's lack of children being able to have dinner at night because they don't have that. And if you go a little bit farther to Nellis, it's the lack of those kids having the opportunity within the schools. It's the lack of them not having the parks and rec afterwards. It's in North Las Vegas. If you go there, it's about helping them get back on track and putting Apex up to speed. And that's going to be great for this area economically because you're going to bring the utilities farther north, which is what you've been needing for a very long time. Then you go over to Centennial Hills and you go out all the way out to Corn Creek. Those folks who are asking to preserve their quality of life that they've had out there. So we are ensuring across the board that everybody wins. And what I will tell you about Commission District B is something that we've been talking about. We have amazing roots in District B. We've worked very hard to ensure that people understand the heritage and the history. Because without District B, the rest of Las Vegas would not exist because this is where the settlers first started. So what I would encourage you to do is continue to be part of the process, agree to disagree, but don't stop asking and don't stop giving input because that's really how people got to make change. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Well, again, thanks for this opportunity. It's good to be able to do this, and I hope we have the opportunity to do this again as we campaign for the primary election. I will say this, one thing that's been important to me, I made a commitment to my voters in 2004, 2005 when I got elected, that I would continue to communicate with them, and I've done that. I've created a newsletter that goes out twice a month. It tells everyone who subscribes to that newsletter what's happening in their part of the city. And I throw things in there that may just be happening downtown or other things or events that might be going on out in the city. Those are big, big ticket items. Fortunately, I'm blessed that the mayor has put me on the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. There is an eye that's looking at Mesquite in regards to events, and I want you all to know that. We recognize that the value is out here for a lot of great events to happen. But that being said, we are dead set on trying to do everything we possibly can for our constituents, and both of us are. I'll tell you that right now. The difference between us, however, is I'm out there every single day. She said something that's key to me, and that's boots on the ground. Something that my family taught me a long time ago. My mother was just do the right thing. Choose to do the right thing every single day and make someone else's life a little bit better. I focused on doing that. I continue to do that every single day, and I'm certainly not going to stop because the people who live in Mesquite need the representation that they've never had, and you're going to get it. Thank you.
Well, for myself, and I believe everybody in this room, it's refreshing to listen to two candidates sit side by side and answer the questions and talk the issues, and not catcall and name call. And I believe both of you really should elevate your sights to president. Okay? Thank you. We're going to take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll get started with the congressional candidates.
Thank you.
Just a couple of remarks to make about the 4th Congressional District before we get going here. It's huge. You've heard that before. It's from North Las Vegas. The Ely takes up most of the middle part of Nevada, and it is also very diverse. 36% of the 4th District is white, 30% Hispanic, 14% black, 4.5% Asian, and 1% Native American. Very diverse district. This district leans Democrat mostly because 80% of the voters live in northern Clark County. Yet, of course, it is represented by a Republican. I guess the alarm clocks didn't go off in 2014 and nobody voted. But anyhow, things are going to change this year, they tell me. We have 4 candidates here. We appreciate you folks coming out from Vegas and wherever else. And we, again, same format. I think you heard all the rules, but anyhow, this time you'll get an opening statement. The others didn't. First of all, we have right to my left here, Lucy Flores. Lucy, on her bio, talks about being a high school dropout who had fallen through the cracks, but went on to earn a law degree and winning a legislative seat. And easily won re-election to the Assembly, but lost the statewide race, you remember, back in Lieutenant Governor in 2014. Next, Lucy, Rubin Kihuen. Rubin served 2 two-year terms in the Nevada Assembly and is currently serving his second 4-year term in the state Senate. In his bio, Rubin says he's the son of a housekeeper and a former farm worker. He understands the needs of the district. Rubin was born in Mexico, grew up here in the United States. Susie Lee is next, a Las Vegas philanthropist and community leader. In 2010, she became president of the Board of Communities in Schools of Nevada, and that's a program that seeks to lower high school dropout rates. Lee and her husband, Dan, have 2 children. They live in Vegas. And John Oceguera. John served in the legislature for 12 years. First elected in 2000 and was forced to retire in 2012 due to the term limits. He was speaker in 2011. Just after leaving Carson City, you may remember John ran in the 3rd Congressional District. He lost to Congressman Heck. Okay, let's begin. Opening statements. Yes, go right ahead, Deb.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, just as was expressed by the commission candidates, thank you all for being here because this race is critically important and we shouldn't have lost it in 2014. So ensuring that one of us makes sure that we get to that concussive party, I think, is the #1 goal. So thank you for being here because you were part of that. And so I'll just briefly tell you about myself. You've heard, many of you remember when I ran for Lieutenant Governor, I spent a lot of time out here. I do talk a lot about my background and the challenges that I experienced growing up right in Congressional District 4. And I do that for several reasons. One is to demonstrate my commitment to this community. People showed me a commitment. People invested in me. They gave me an opportunity to be better. And that is what inspires my public service every single day. It's about making other people's lives better, about doing whatever I can as a public servant to improve the quality of life for everyone, just as it was done for me. And 2 is also to demonstrate that I recognize the challenges that exist out there. When I talk about these issues, if I talk about our educational system, if I talk about protecting, not just expanding Social Security, or not just protecting Social Security, but expanding it, those things are personal to me because I've experienced it myself. And I see my dad experience those challenges. My dad worked every single day, day and night, after my mother left my family. And after all of those years, he's trying to live off of $500 a month in Social Security. That's unacceptable in today's economy and today's America. So that's the reason why I talk so much about my background and why, frankly, I'm here today and why I'm running for this congressional seat. Because to me, it is about improving our communities and trying to do whatever it takes to improve the quality of life for all Nevadans.
Thank you. Rubin?
Thank you. Good evening, Democrats. Yay. Are you ready to sing Crescent Hardy home? All right. That's right, the Bunkerville. Bernie, thank you so much. Panelists, actually our journalists, thank you so much.
to my colleagues as well, and to all of you for being here this evening. My name is Rubin Kihuen. I'm a state senator. I'm your Democratic National Committee man. I'm a former state assemblyman. But most importantly, as Bernie mentioned, I am the son of a housekeeper and the son of a former farm worker. My parents came to America when I was 8 years old from Mexico in pursuit of the American dream. My parents came here so we could someday own a home, have a car, have a good paying job, a union job, and so that someday their kids can get a good college education. Well, today my family has achieved that American dream. And my story is only possible in the United States of America. But unfortunately, we have right now a Congress that is controlled by the wealthy and the elite, by the people who don't care about the middle class, by a Congress that is not represented by people like you and I. And unfortunately, we have a congressman who is part of that wealthy and elite. He's part of that system that has rigged the economy against people like you and I. And right now, we have an opportunity to take him out. You know, while I've been in Carson City, increasing the minimum wage, fighting to increase the minimum wage, Congressman Hardy is against raising the minimum wage. I presented the bill to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour in Carson City. While I was in Carson City, co-sponsoring the bill for equal pay for equal work for women, Congressman Hardy opposes equal pay for women. And while I was in Carson City making college more affordable by passing the first ever grants for low-income students, Congressman Hardy voted twice to cut the Pell Grant. So there is a stark difference between us and Crescent Hardy, and I think we can all agree that it's time for Crescent Hardy to come home. Thank you, everybody, and I hope to earn your support. Susie Lee?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be back here to see all of you. And I view this voters here as some of the most well-informed and well-educated voters that I have run across. So I thank you all for your involvement and your interest in this race. I am here, I'm running for Congress because for my entire career, I have fought hard and gotten results for what I believe in. And I was here several months ago with many of you in this room, and I asked a question for you to raise your hand if you had a better opportunity than your parents, and the room raised their hand. Then I asked, what about your kids having a better opportunity than you? And only a few hands went up. And that's precisely what I have been fighting for my entire career. We have a Congress that is led by extreme Republicans that are taking this country in a direction where we're saying to our young people, take a look at where you are when you're born, because that's going to determine where you end up. That's not the America that you grew up on. It's not the America that gave me the opportunities that I've had, and it's not what I've been fighting for my entire career. I moved to Las Vegas with my husband 23 years ago. I started a comprehensive homeless center for the city of Las Vegas. Following that, I started an after-school program, and I'm proud to say that 20 years later, every day 5,000 kids have a safe place to learn after school. I then put together a group of women to address critical needs in our community, and because of our work, thousands of people now have a better life, whether it's women struggling to get back on their feet, veterans, homeless youth, foster kids, among many. And as you said, I have been now the president of Communities and Schools, a Dropout Prevention Program. And I'm proud to say that when I started, we were serving 8 schools, and today we're 6 times larger, serving 56,000 kids across the state and keeping thousands of kids in school and on their way to a better life. I'm asking for your vote because I want to go to Washington to do a job for you, not to get a job for me. I have gotten results. I've rolled up my sleeves. I don't talk about improving our education system. I actually get in there and do that. I grew up as one of 8 kids in Canton, Ohio. My dad worked for a steel company. And my mom said one thing that has stuck with me my entire life. If you want something done right, then do it yourself. And I think we all can agree that Congress is moving in the wrong direction, and we need a new type of leadership. And I'm asking for your support, and I will get results for you. Thanks.
Thank you. John?
Thank you, everybody. I'm John Oceguera. The bar's only open till 8, so this We get much better if you keep drinking. So I'm from a town about half the size of this called Fallon. I'm a fourth generation Nevadan, and my kid's fifth generation Nevadan. So we've been in this community a long, long time. I came from the northern part of the state to the southern part of the state to go to university, and I also at that time was fortunate enough to get on the fire department. I worked in the fire department on the North Las Vegas Fire Department for over 20 years, rising from firefighter to the assistant fire chief in North Las Vegas. Along the way, I was elected to your legislature, served in your legislature for 12 years, as was noted, was the assistant majority leader for 4, and the speaker of the assembly in the 2011 legislative session. Community service has been in my blood. There's two things you can be in my family, a teacher or a firefighter. So I went the firefighter route. My mom was the teacher, and I saw the value of education through her. She was 16 when she had me. She was a single mother, and we struggled a bit. But I saw what education did for her, so I tried to follow in her footsteps, and that's why education is very important to me as well. I have 3 young children, 6, 4, and 2, so it's also another reason it strikes very close to the heart. This district, as it was noted, is huge, 45,000 square miles. From the point where we're at right now to the edge of the district in Yerington is 350 miles from here. You not only have to be able to speak to different ethnic communities, you have to speak to different geographic communities, you have to speak to different folks of different income levels, you have to speak to a lot of different folks. And I think I've been doing that my whole life, listening to people and bringing them together. That's why I have served in both the fire service and in the legislature over the bulk of my adult life, and that's why I want to serve again. I ran for the legislature in the first place because I thought the guy that was representing me wasn't doing a good job. That's why I'm running now. I don't think the guy that's representing me in this district is doing a good job. And so if I'm lucky enough to earn your support, I will be out here listening to you and trying to serve you to the best of my ability. And I look forward to the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, John again.
There it is. I want to make mention that I think this is the first, or at least one of the first times, the 4 people vying to be the Democratic nominee to be our congressman have sat on the same stage and answered questions of the press and their constituents. And I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you all for attending. So Lucy, you know, the GOP is constantly trying to close Planned Parenthood and legislate local laws that make it harder for women to access legal reproductive care. In May of 2015, Crescent Hardy stated that as a nation, we cannot stand by and accept the brutality of abortion, and I will continue to fight to protect unborn lives at all stages of development. Would you say it is now too difficult for most women to access reproductive health care? And if so, how should we rectify it?
So this is definitely an issue that is personal to me, that I've spoken out about very openly in the past. In fact, I talked about my choice to have my own abortion when I was 16 years old, when I was trying to advocate for comprehensive sex ed here in Nevada. And as a result of even saying that word publicly, I had my life threatened. I had one of the most horrific experiences as a legislator in just advocating for, frankly, a right that women have in this country. Now, in Nevada, we've been very lucky in that we haven't had abortion and reproductive rights and very much of that challenge. However, in the rest of the country, for example, in Texas, we now have whole women's health that is at the Supreme Court, where that is, frankly, one of the most significant abortion rights cases since Roe v. Wade that is now sitting at the Supreme Court. So this is absolutely an issue that matters to women, to families. because this isn't just about women, this is about economic empowerment. This is the ability for women to make choices about their own lives and the future of their own lives, and frankly, the ability to plan their families as they see fit. So in Nevada, I believe that we always have to remain vigilant. As I said, we still do not have comprehensive sex ed in Nevada as a policy, and so it's something that we have to continually work on.
All right, Senator Kihuen, would you support legislation in Congress, if elected, requiring big tech companies like Apple to create encryption backdoors into people's private iPhones or cell phones? This is related, of course, to the federal government, the Department of Justice trying to get into the San Bernardino shooters' iPhones. And more generally, how would you balance the concerns of data privacy with national security concerns?
Thank you for the question. Well, look, I think this is a very difficult question. I think none of us in this panel are experts in technology. I think the most of us who use the iPhone is to tweet and to Facebook and to access it. Obviously, we have to be cognizant of people's privacy as well, but we also have to balance it with the fact that, if there is somebody making threats that are putting our security at risk, then I think there should be an opportunity for us to work with some of the tech companies to be able to provide some sort of access to some of this technology, some of the either iPhones, the iPads, or computers. But again, it's a very fine line, and I think we're seeing that right now. We're seeing a precedent being set right now by the case between the San Bernardino shooters and also the iPhone capabilities.
So do you think that Apple should be required to comply with the Department of Justice's order to hand over and basically allow you to get into that iPhone?
Again, I am not an expert in technology, but I am willing to work with some of the companies, with some of the companies who are making these phones, to be able to see what are we able to actually, what type of app can we actually create to be able to balance the people's privacy as well as people's security.
Mrs. Lee, you have made extraordinary progress on your own without being a politician. Why would you want to go to Congress and deal with the gridlock?
I've been married for 23 years, and the person who had the #1 idea, who said, if you're going to run for office, you should run for Congress, was my husband. So maybe he's sending me a message. Listen, a lot of my work has been about providing kids with opportunity through education. From the minute I hit the ground in Nevada, my background's in public management. I've been working at that. And what I'm finding with the work I do, especially with communities and schools, which really focuses on the barriers that poverty presents to families in our community, is that our families are breaking down. And we are not offering a middle class with a pathway to actually even to be in the middle class, let alone remain there. And these are issues that again and again emanate from Washington, D.C. And like I said, I feel that the Congress that we have, especially led by Crescent Harden, who not only doesn't think we should increase the minimum wage, he doesn't think we should have a minimum wage at all. He wants to privatize Social Security and Medicare. And so these are issues that are key to the strength of our community and our families. And, I have a background in bringing people together and getting things done, and that's the type of leadership we need in D.C.
Good evening, John. I wrote a story recently about the Crescent Hardy's reelection chances, and the state party for the Democrats said in part, quote unquote, Congressman Crescent Hardy has the wrong priorities and his record reflects out of touch his extreme agenda is with the people he's supposed to represent. Give me an example, one specific instance in which you feel like he has failed to represent the people he's supposed to represent.
Sure. Thanks for the question. Look, you need not look at his record. You can look at his voting record, and that's simple. Whether we're talking about things like Planned Parenthood, whether we're talking about issues with our public land, which I know is important to folks in this area, he votes the wrong way on those issues. But he also says some pretty egregious stuff. He talks about disabled folks being a drain on society. That's just 180 degrees from where I'm at. I served with President Hardy in the legislature, and I can tell you 9 times out of 10, we were on the exact opposite side of most votes. Whether it came to funding our education system, our criminal justice system, he was exactly 100% opposite. So I think the statement by the party, I can just hand the mic. Here's Marlon Turner. The statement by the Democratic Party was right on the mark. His priorities are completely opposite of what this district are. Remember, I told you this is a diverse district. This is a district that you have to actually get out there and listen to folks because it's so diverse, both ethnically, economically, and in all ways. So I don't think he's representing well.
Okay, John, and maybe you can start with Rubin so you have somebody different to ask a question to.
Okay, so I'm going to start with Rubin and we'll do that rotation. Concerning the shipment of nuclear waste to Yucca Mountain, Crescent Hardy, his name keeps coming up, said, I don't think there's a better place for it. What's your opinion?
Well, President Hardy is wrong on almost every issue. I think on many issues, there couldn't be a more stark contrast between President Hardy and myself. And I'm sure all my colleagues here on the panel. On Yucca Mountain, though, particularly, he has talked about negotiating. He has talked about negotiating with the government to be able to bring other states' nuclear waste to the state of Nevada, to your backyard. Not only am I against bringing nuclear waste to the state of Nevada, I will fight tooth and nail when I get to Congress to make sure that we continue the work that Senator Reid started. As the majority leader, when he was the majority leader, he did everything possible to protect the state of Nevada from the nuclear waste. And I think it goes without saying that we're trying to create jobs here in the state of Nevada. There's many other ways to do it. We started that with bringing Tesla, we bring in Faraday, and some of the other technology companies are looking at Nevada. And so these are some of the ideas that I put forward in Carson City as a state legislator to create jobs in the state of Nevada, not bringing nuclear waste and putting our families in jeopardy. So I agree with Congressman Hardy, and this is part of the reason why we need to take him out.
All right, Ms. Lee, would you, if elected to Congress, support efforts to close the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay? And if so, where do you think those detainees should be moved, whether to the United States?
Yeah, this is a tough question for sure. Listen, I support the president's efforts to close Guantanamo Bay. I think that, we obviously created it after the Iraq War to house dangerous terrorists, but we call into questions the values that are American and the treatment of the prisoners there. That being said, I do think that ultimately protecting our people, protecting the United States against terrorists is incredibly important. And we have facilities where they can be moved to. There are some people who are even American citizens that are there. And so I do think that we need to transfer them to a high security facility and allow them to be treated under the doctrine that is America, and give them due process as well, but also protect their national interests.
Speaker, as recently as last summer, you had a 93% grade from the National Rifle Association. And in December, you had an epiphany after the San Bernardino tragedy. I'm wondering, why did it take you so long to come to your senses about the NRA, and you are still opposed to a ban on assault weapons? If you're real about this, why not ban assault weapons?
So, thank you for the question, Dana. I told you, I grew up in a small town. I grew up in Fallon, Nevada. It's a little different than someone who comes from a big city. I grew up with a shotgun in the back of my truck. We went duck hunting in the morning before school, and it was part of our culture. I got in a fist fight before, believe it or not, once or twice, and I never went and got that shotgun. Nobody did. We didn't act like that, but times have changed. Some very important things happened in my life. My father killed himself, and then, well, first he killed someone else, and then he killed himself. He was a serial domestic batterer. He shouldn't have had a gun. That's one thing that happened in my life. Then, just before Thanksgiving, my best friend from high school killed himself with a gun. He had a history of mental illness. He shouldn't have had a gun. So things happen in people's lives where they say, I gotta stand up and do something. I'm a law-abiding gun owner. And I have some common sense. And those things, mental illness, the ability to get, if you can't get on a plane, domestic batters, those people shouldn't have guns. And so those things happened in my life, Dana, and I said I had to stand up because the NRA has a stranglehold on Congress. We can't even pass common sense things like those in a time.
Yeah, we'll let you quickly answer that about the assault weapons ban.
Sure. So, yeah, look, I'm not necessarily for or against an assault weapon ban. I haven't said one way or the other. I'll tell you this. I mean, I think a law-abiding gun owner who wants to collect weapons, that's one thing. But that's someone who has gone through a background check, and they're not there yet. You need to pass comprehensive background checks as well. I don't need an assault weapon to shoot a deer, so I get the point. But if you want to collect one and put one up on your wall, I think there's some individual freedoms there too.
Okay. Thank you. And I do remind any candidate, if they want to pop up afterwards and use their 30 seconds again. I don't know if you heard me tell the previous group that you get 2 times to pop up and give a 30-second rebuttal, okay? So feel free to do that if there's something that's said that you want to rebut. Okay, next question.
Good evening, Lucy. I'm sorry. Goldview, right over here, just south of us, had a question from a reader as well, but it was a question I wanted to ask. There is a group here that's called the Friends of Goldview that is working for permanent protection there at Goldview. What are your thoughts on permanent protection?
I think we absolutely need to continue fighting for permanent protection, both of you. Look, it's not only critical for a number of different reasons, but for the economy here, but it has historical significance, it's got environmental significance, and it's got economic significance. I mean, ensuring that all of those interests are met by protecting Goldview is critical to the economy and the community here in Mesquite, and frankly to the state of Nevada and to this country. We need to ensure that we are protecting our public lands the same way we did with Tweed Springs, the same way we've done with Great Basin, the same way that we've done with many of our lands. We need to certainly strike that balance with economic development, but it's very clear with these various areas that we need to continue fighting for protection and ensuring that they get the status that they deserve.
Okay, now I'm going down the line, so this question is for Susie. The Employment Non-Discrimination Act would make it a crime for an employer to discriminate based on gender identity. Crescent Hardy called the Employee Non-Discrimination Act a segregation law. Inexplicably. And he voted against a similar state law. What is your position on this issue?
I am completely opposite Crescent Hardy on this issue, and it explains why the Human Rights Campaign has ranked him as one of the faces of inequality in Congress today. And, you know, I think that people should have the right and the freedom to love who they want, to be who they are, and to have the chance to marry, raise children, get a good job, and continue at that job. So I'm in completely opposition to Crescent Hardy. He's wrong on this issue. And as you know, in reference to an earlier question on why Crescent Hardy's so wrong for this seat, you know, the LCB just gave him a 0%. That's the Conservation Alliance, gave him a 0% score on any conservation and environmental view. And so, and with respect to Gold Butte and Bunkerville, I mean, he's wrong on that issue as well. And, you know, that's the answer.
Okay, Riley?
All right, Mr. Speaker, would you support an effort to raise the minimum wage nationally to $15 an hour?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I would. And so with my minute and 25 seconds, I'd like to talk about a little fire issue. Did you hear that popping over here? Like there's a fire guy, I'm sitting here, there's a 6-way plug pulled all the way full into an extension cord, into another cord. I'm nervous. I'm nervous here, and I just want y'all to know that.
That's what's called being on the hot seat.
If you are elected to this seat and the president, whoever he may be, decides to put the boots on the ground to fight ISIS, is that something that you would support?
Well, as I heard from the crowd, he or she, we have 2 gender choices this time, which is obviously fantastic for the country. In terms of what the president decides, at this point, based on the obviously limited intelligence that I have, and I think most of us are limited in having this media, et cetera, I would not support putting boots on the ground right now. I think that we need to continue working, not only diplomatic efforts, but we need to start working with our allies in the region and hold them more accountable for the various things that are transpiring in their countries, whether it's the funneling of money to these terrorist organizations, whether it's the instability that they have in their own government, et cetera. We need to attack this from all different measures. And frankly, I think that boots on the ground really should be our last resort. This country has been at war for many years now, and we need to do what's possible in order to avoid this continual cycle of war that we have unfortunately been on for many years.
Good evening, Rubin. Talk to me a little bit about the welfare and stability of the Democratic Party as a whole. There's a lot of talk about the status of the Republican Party, and a lot of people will describe it as a broken party or a party in chaos, and maybe Donald Trump leading the polls is an indicator of that. Talk to me about how the Democratic Party is on better footing right now than the Republican Party.
So, if any of you watched the presidential debates, or the clown show on the Republican side, you know, it is, and if you watch the Democratic side, you see a stark contrast. You see the Democratic Party who, like us up here, are talking about the issues that matter. If you look at the Republican side, you're seeing people who are making an attempt to see who can keep more immigrants out of this country, who can discriminate more against the gays, who can discriminate more against women. You know, who is now, the party that's inciting all this hate. You know, we were just talking about this, you know, some of these pictures with the KKK regalia, you know, people out there at the Donald Trump rallies, you don't see that on the Democratic side. And you know, and if you look at some of the past debates between Republican candidates, presidential candidates, you see a civil discourse, you see a civil discussion. But today what you're seeing is a Republican Party that is discriminated against almost every single constituency out there. And you're seeing a Democratic Party that is fighting for what's going to make our economy stronger, which is raising the minimum wage. They're fighting for equal pay for women, for equality for women. They're talking about, you know, making college more affordable instead of keeping our students out of the college. And so I think there's a stark contrast here, and I think that's why this election matters so much. And I think what matters is that every single one of you come out and vote, regardless of who you support in this panel, because the Republican Party cannot win this election. And me personally, that's why I support Hillary Clinton, and I hope that she's our next president. Okay, Dr. John.
Okay, now I'm skipping down to you, John. You're the first on the docket. 23 states have legalized the use of marijuana in one form or another. Given that, do you support or oppose the continuation of the federal laws that criminalize it?
Thank you for the question. I oppose the laws that criminalize it. I think we should make marijuana a Schedule II drug. That would solve a lot of problems. It would solve the banking problems. As a matter of fact, and I know that there's some consternation in the community, but today when I came out, I toured your facility out here and I took a tour, and it's a pretty professional organization, pretty professional deal out there. So it's one of the things I'd like to do in my career is actually go see things and see what they're doing. And so, yeah, I would support the decriminalization. I think in this country right now, 700,000 people are arrested every year for small amounts of marijuana. That equals 1 every 45 seconds. You know, we can clear a lot of people out of prison for small time offenses and worry about the big fish, about the little fish.
All right, Ms. Flores, at an earlier candidate in Pahrump, Nevada, Ms. Lee made the allegation that Mr. Oceguera, your colleague Mr. Kihuen, and yourself voted for a bill that would make it easier to stockpile guns. I believe it's 8282. Could you talk about that bill and why you voted for it in 2011?
So obviously when you're in the legislature, you deal with hundreds, if not thousands of bills every single session. And with this particular bill, I actually don't remember the details, so if you can remind us all of those details, that would be great. In terms of generally speaking, the process is really important, and this is something that Ms. Lee, obviously has no experience with because she's never served in a legislative body before. Normally, when bills come to you and you don't serve on that committee, you generally trust the judgment of your fellow Democrats. And so if they come out of committee from a democratically held committee and most Democrats were in favor of it, or if it came out unanimous, then you trust the judgment of your colleagues generally and you support that bill. In the legislature, close to 100% of the bills that get to the floor are actually unanimous. There's actually very few bills that are partisan in nature. So that being said, that's how the legislative process works. You very much rely on your colleagues and the judgment that they're exercising. So I think that's how I can generally speak to this particular bill and very likely the process that bill went through.
Would anybody like to use a 30-second rebuttal here? Sounds like everybody.
I'll just tell you what was in the bill. It was basically you could get a permit for a concealed weapon permit and have multiple guns under one permit. And I just want to make a commitment, not having served in a legislature before, but knowing the type of person I am and the leadership I provide, that when I vote on something, I will know exactly what I'm voting on.
Okay, and a rebuttal here now.
Thank you. You're making a promise that frankly is not reality. It's impossible for one person, 24 hours in a day, to go through thousands and thousands of bills. And so if we're going to talk about these issues, let's be very honest with everybody and what this process looks like. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that as a human being, we can go through line by line, item by item, literally thousands and thousands of bills that are before us. And so we have staff, we have colleagues, we have a system that we rely on in order to be as informed as we possibly can for those issues. So let's be very honest about this process and be honest with you all, the voter.
Anybody else want to use 30 seconds? Yes.
Thank you. Actually, let me inform you a little bit more about that bill. That bill was our first step in background checks. That bill included some language about background checks and when you would have to get one if you purchase a weapon. It also uniformly tried to make it uniform between states on concealed weapon carry. And yeah, the bill did say that if you got a concealed weapon permit, you only had to qualify with one gun. You didn't have to qualify with a pistol that was a revolver or a semi-automatic. It's just common sense legislation. It didn't have anything about stockpiling weapons.
Okay. Next subject.
Senator, you mentioned that you support Secretary Clinton. You are also endorsed by the Culinary Union, which, as you know, did not endorse in the Democratic caucus. And they've had their problems with the Affordable Care Act, which Secretary Clinton intends to continue. What do you know about Secretary Clinton that the Culinary Union does not?
Well, first of all, I am very proud to both support Hillary Clinton. I've been a supporter of her since 2007. I am a superdelegate here. I'm one of the Democratic National Committeemen, as I mentioned. And I'm also equally proud to have the endorsement and the support of the 57,000 Culinary Union, as well as 12 other unions who have endorsed our campaign. What I will tell you this is that on the Affordable Care Act, I stand 100% with the Culinary Union that we have to get rid of the Cadillac tax. Because people like my mother's been a 22-year member of the Culinary Union, depend on this health insurance. And, you know, my mother has been working tirelessly, day in and day out, and she's precisely working right now as we speak. You know, she's in her last year before she retires, but she has fought tirelessly and has paid into that health insurance, and she deserves to have that coverage that she earned. And so that is why I believe that we need to repeal the Cadillac tax from the Affordable Care Act. And again, I can't speak on behalf of Secretary Clinton, but I will say that I'm very proud to have the support of the Culinary Union, and I'm very proud to also support Hillary Clinton.
Good evening, Susie. You talked in your opening statement about getting things done, and I do applaud you for your work with schools and children and family. If elected to the Congress, how can you or would you help specifically Mesquite continue to grow a stronger, more sustainable economic profile?
Thank you. Yes, I have, spent my career working with people and bringing people together to get things done on the ground. And when I look at the position of Congresswoman, obviously there's being in Washington and working through the legislative process and moving bills and being in DC, but there's also the constituency services and the spectrum, which is something that I think my strengths will play to very well. First and foremost, not only in Mesquite, but in all of Nevada and this country, we need to create good incentives for good paying jobs. Nevada has notoriously been at the top of the bad list and the bottom of the good list. And for once with renewable energy, we have an opportunity to be at the top of a good list. And I think that as a Congresswoman, I would be a champion of that. And I think that offers a lot of opportunity, not only in Mesquite, but in many of our rural areas and throughout Nevada with our abundance of solar energy. So that will be an issue that I'll champion.
Okay, Ms. In recent years, the state of Nevada adopted comprehensive legislation banning discrimination against LGBTQ Americans in the workplace, in public accommodations, and in most other areas. Federal law still lacks this. If elected to Congress, will you co-sponsor the Equality Act to update the Civil Rights Act to include LGBTQ Americans?
Yes.
You have a minute, 27 seconds left.
Well, I can identify some other code violations or something. No, I mean, look, there isn't too much to add to that. We're in a time where look, we started with all people are created equal. That includes gender, that includes race, that includes sexual orientation, that includes everything. All people are created, all people are created equal. I just don't think that there's too much to debate or to add. Very simple core concept that I think that as Democrats we should all be very dedicated and loyal to.
Senator Kihuen, a recent Las Vegas Sun article, let it be known that you did not want to attend the City of North Las Vegas State of the City because it was at Station Casinos and because you are a strong supporter of the culinary union and you support their efforts to unionize their workforce. Yet you took money from the Ferrietta family and from Station Casinos in your state Senate re-election bid. How would you explain to voters that you're not playing both sides of that issue?
As I mentioned, my mother's been a 22 member of the culinary union. That is mainly the reason why I'm a strong supporter of the culinary union. That and also because they fight for workers who otherwise cannot fight for themselves. They give a voice to people who otherwise wouldn't have a voice. Can you picture that housekeeper sitting down with the big corporate lawyers trying to negotiate? It's nearly impossible, right? So you have to have representation. That's what the unions do. What I will say is this. We have right now Station Casinos who has violated multiple times. They've been found in violation of many labor laws by the National Labor Board, and they continue to do so. And many other properties here in the state of Nevada, including MGM, some of the largest in the state and the country and the world, including MGM, Caesars Entertainment, Bowie Gaming, they've all sat down with the culinary union and negotiated contracts for their employees. And it is a shame that right now we have a company who refuses to come to the table and sit down. Now, I did make attempts to reach out and try to negotiate some sort of talk between culinary and stations. I was hopeful when I talked to them that this would, that this would be a pathway to allow them an opportunity to negotiate. But unfortunately, Station Casinos refuses to come to the table, and as long as they continue refusing to come to the table, I will not take any of their money, and I will continue to stand on the side of the workers, because this country continues to be controlled by the big corporations, by the wealthy and the elite, and that is what the Station Casinos is a perfect example. That the Station Casinos, the Walmarts of the world, continue to control this country, and that is unacceptable.
Ms. Lee, all those children that you have helped graduate from high school, do you think they should have the opportunity to go on to college for free?
Definitely, college affordability obviously is a huge issue in this country. I had the opportunity to go to school. Again, I grew up as one of 8 kids, and my parents didn't have the means to save for us to go to school. So I did have the opportunity through Pell Grants and work study and Perkins loans to go to a good school and graduate. And certainly the price of education has skyrocketed since then. I do think that there are opportunities for us to make college more affordable. If we could make college free and pay for it, it was something I would be in favor of. I'm just not sure how that gets paid for. And I also think that we have to look at the other side of the coin, which is the escalating price of a college education, and take steps to control the increase in those prices. Since I went to school, the cost of my education has increased almost 1,000-fold. And so being able to offer that same opportunity to young people is diminishing. And so looking at college affordability and offering incentives, whether it is allowing students to refinance their loans. I mean, we let people refinance their house loans, but yet we don't do that with college students. So those are alternatives that I'd look at as well.
John, there's been a lot of talk about possibly professional sports coming to Clark County at some point in Las Vegas, whether it's the NHL or the NFL. Been a lot of money thrown around, a lot of debate about that. Do you see that as being something that would be positive for Nevada and for Clark County, and how could the state use that if it were to happen to benefit the state as a whole?
Thank you. I do. I think it is a positive thing. Now, how that gets financed again is another issue. But look, we've reinvented ourselves in this state many, many times. And I think a professional sports team would be the next step in reinventing ourselves again. We would have the opportunity to bring not only professional sports, but major concerts, major festivals. We have to keep reinventing this economy and keep revigorating it. Invigorating it. Sometimes you say the wrong words. It's how we pay for that. And so, look, there's been some money put on the table. There's already some land. I wouldn't be in favor of public financing. So that answers the question, I hope.
Okay, Rubin, you're first in the rotation this time. This question was submitted by a reader. As a Friends of Gold Butte board member, whose mission it is to permanently protect our piece of the Grand Canyon, I want to know where you stand on permanent protection for special places like Gold Butte, where sadly we are seeing increased damage to archaeological resources and habitat for threatened species. Sincerely, Byron George. Now I want to add that to another question some of our readers asked me this evening to relay. People who've recently discovered Mesquite and bought a home there said Nevada is always known for partying and casinos and gambling, but they see the mountain climbing, the hiking, the natural resources, the fabulous outdoor recreation things that are available here. So what would you do to help protect these special places, and how would you help try to get Nevada on the map for some additional outdoor activities?
Well, first of all, I plan on continuing the work that Senator Reed started in designating some of these areas as national monuments. A few years ago, before I started running for Congress, a long time before I started running for Congress, I came up with the Gold Butte Days. I was out there at the little festival they do, showing my support as a state senator in their efforts. This is, I want to say, 4 or 5 years ago. And in the state legislature, you might recall there was the resolution number 1 that Congressman Hardy's buddy, Senator Goicoechea, who is friends with the Bundy family, presented a bill, a resolution to send a message to Congress that we want our lands back. Not only did I vote against it, Senator Ford and myself were the 2 senators who took the lead on the Senate floor and spoke out against this resolution. Because first of all, we cannot afford it. We have all this open land, particularly in the 4th Congressional District, that if it's given back to the state, we cannot afford it. And second of all, I will continue making the effort to designate Gold Butte as a national monument. And as far as the outdoor recreational areas, I mean, look, I'm an avid hiker out of Red Rock. I would support any effort in trying to diversify our economy through recreational and outdoor activities.
If it's okay with you, Bernie, I ask a short question for all 4.
Go right ahead.
All right.
We've got about 15 more minutes here, and we'll change up the rules just a bit.
All right.
It's great being a moderator. You can do anything you want.
Every congressional candidate says bipartisanship is important. Can you name who your favorite Republican is?
A couple. Paul Anderson, actually, I think is very, so before I keep naming names, because there are a few. I was really fortunate to have worked with a lot of great Republican colleagues. In terms of the legislation that I passed, close to 70% of the legislation that I passed was signed under, of course, a Republican governor. And that wasn't just by working with Democrats. You have to be able to work with Republicans as well. But here's the thing, is that we need to, we're not going to get rid of the two, and of course, sometimes we want to expand it to more parties so that we have choices. But we have to work with, hopefully, with moderate and reasonable Republicans. They're not going away. they're going to be there forever. And if we're going to work with Republicans, then we need to bring back the kind that are reasonable and that are willing to meet in the middle and actually have educated conversation about these issues. The current Tea Party Republicans, Crescent Party, I absolutely put in that extremist part of the party. Those folks need to go. We cannot work with those folks. They're unreasonable. They will not consensus, and working together is just a word that's not in their vocabulary. And so those Republicans who have been reasonable and have been able to work with, like Paul Anderson, like the, gosh, I'm blanking his name, Assemblyman from Pahrump, Oscarson, James Oscarson, they were partners of mine in various pieces of legislation. And those are the kinds of folks that I think that we should not only have, but are willing to work with us and that we should have in this process.
First, let me say that I'm proud to be a Democrat, I'm proud to be a progressive Democrat, and I'm proud to have championed progressive values throughout my 10 years in the legislature, 4 years in the Assembly, 6 years in the Senate. With that being said, I want to say, I like some Republicans. And one of those Republicans that I think I want to say is one of my favorite is Ronald Reagan. And I'll tell you this, I would not be standing here today if it weren't for the 1986 amnesty immigration reform that passed. My family came to America when I was 8 years old, and we became legalized residents. My father, who is here today, he was a farm worker in the fields of California, and he became a legalized resident of this country thanks to that Ronald Reagan 1986 amnesty. When Republicans, when presidential candidates at that time were reasonable, where they were willing to listen to immigrants, when they were a little more inclusive. But now you're seeing a division. You're talking about two Latino presidential candidates, Rubio and Cruz, two sons of immigrants who are talking about who can keep the most immigrants out of this country. You know what? Ronald Reagan would be upset. He would be disappointed with this Republican Party today.
I'm gonna answer my question based on this last legislative session. I've lived in Las Vegas and Nevada for 23 years. The majority of my work has focused on education and getting more investment in education in the state. Anyone who's lived and worked here, we rank 50th in education attainment, and it's no surprise that we also don't fund education at that level. So that being said, there's a few Republicans who were in this last legislative session who helped get the tax bill through and helped get additional funding for education into our community. And I'm not going to say I love them. I'm going to hang out with them, but I do admire that they took some tough stands and they pushed through the legislative bill. I look at Becky Harris, who was at the head of the Education Committee. I thought she exhibited some decent leadership, getting some of those quality bills through the legislative session.
So I was fortunate enough to be able to work with some of the legislative greats in my career. Before term limits, people served a long time. One of those was Bill Raggio. He never treated me like a Democrat on the other side. He treated me like a colleague and a friend, and we worked together to pass some good legislation. He always protected his district and his people, but I think Bill Raggio would roll over in the grave with some of the things that these guys are talking about now in the last couple legislative sessions. Another one was Jake Jacobsmeyer. Jake, we called him Jake in the legislature of Douglas County, another common sense guy that did what was right for the state of Nevada. And I would finally say, I worked a lot with Governor Brian Sandoval. When Governor Sandoval said that he wanted to change the economic development system in his state of the state, I was doing the rebuttal for the state of the state. And I said, you know what, Governor Sandoval, I agree, and I'm gonna help you. He didn't have a bill. I took a bill and moved it forward, and we changed the whole economic development system in the state. That was Democrats and Republicans working together. Myself, Brian Sandoval, Brian Krolicki, Stephen Horsford, all working together to get that done. So those are some of the Republicans that I think are reasonable Republicans that I enjoy working with over the years.
Dana, how would you like to break the rules?
Speaker, you mentioned your support for recreational marijuana, and I remember 15 years ago you were one of only 3 Democrats in the state assembly who voted against the medical marijuana bill after voters approved it twice. In 2011, when you were speaker, your colleague Paul Aisley's bill did not get a hearing, I believe, and I'm just wondering why. What have you done? You mentioned the needless imprisonment of people for marijuana offenses. What did you do during your tenure, all those years in the legislature, to decriminalize marijuana?
Actually, that's a good, let me start out with the 2001 vote or 2003 vote, I can't remember. You are absolutely correct. 3 people voted against it, I was one of them. As you recall, I worked on the streets of North Las Vegas for 2.5 decades, seeing a lot of issues because of drugs and alcohol. And so I had some concerns. And this is, remember, 16 years ago, like you said. I had some concerns that we didn't have our stuff together when the first legislation came down the pike. I think that now we have done a good job of figuring out exactly what the regulations should be, the structure, putting all the pieces in place to do this better. In 2001, we did. Again, there's a lot of research that's happened since then that has changed my mind. Look, I'm not afraid to say when I was wrong or when I changed my mind. At the time, I thought I was right. Now, I think that we're heading in the right direction. And we have done a lot of work in the legislature to not necessarily decriminalize, but reduce the sentences, reduce the penalties on small drug-related offenses.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions before we get to closing statements. Steve?
Well, I want to go off track again. I'm going to blame Riley.
Okay.
He started it.
Okay.
But I think at this point, all 4 candidates, I think it's clear, feel like you would better represent than Crescent Hardy in this congressional district. That being said, how do you feel you're more qualified or more capable than the 3 people sitting up there next to you tonight?
Well, we certainly agree on any one of us would be a better choice than Cousin Mark. That's for sure. There's definitely consensus on that. Look, I think that I'm a very different kind of candidate and frankly the best candidate up here for several reasons. One is because of my record. Not only my legislative record in getting things done, but my personal record in getting things done. I can name you specific legislation. I'm just not talking about I worked for this or I worked for that. We revamped the entire way that we test our kids out of our entire school system in Nevada. That was a bill that I was told I would not accomplish. Not only did I accomplish it, but also had a $1.5 million revenue bill attached to it that, again, I worked with the governor and my Republican colleagues on. So it's my record of accomplishment in the legislature. I'm a lawyer now. I came from a very, very different place, as you know, as a kid. So for me, it's about having that dedication and the know-how to get it done. So that also changes my perspective. But frankly, I'm also the most progressive candidate up here. I'm very proud to say that I have been endorsed by all 3 national prominent progressive organizations, MoveOn.org, the Progressive Campaign Change Committee, and Democracy for America. And that MoveOn.org vote I won with 64% of registered Congressional District 4 voters. So I have not only a proven record, but the perspective is very different. And frankly, my campaign is being funded very differently. I have now close to 5,500 contributions made to my campaign, which is significantly different the way that any of these candidates are raising money for their campaign as well. I'm very proud to be completely grassroots.
What I will tell is this, look at my record. You know, two reasons why I'm the most qualified. And look, we're all friends up here. I'm not gonna sit here and attack any of my colleagues because at the end of the day, the person that we need to be attacking is the Republicans and Congressman Preston Harding. But the most important part here is electing somebody that not only has the record of getting things done. Again, I presented the bill to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I presented the bill that created the first ever need-based grants for low-income students, and I co-sponsored the bill for equal pay for equal work for women in the state of Nevada. This is before I decided to run for Congress. Second of all, I have a proven track record of winning elections. This is going to be my 5th election. I've never lost an election. I've won every single election with more than 60% of the vote. Even in 2014, when every Democrat almost got, or actually every Democrat, up and down the ticket from the constitutional officers to our own Congressman Horsford, lost the re-election, I won with 65% of the vote. So winning elections matters. Having the experience matters. Now is not the time to be taking on Congressman Preston Harding with no experience. You need a candidate that can win elections. Somebody that has a proven track record of getting things done, winning elections, and somebody who has been endorsed by 13 labor unions, including the Culinary Union, SEIU, the teachers, somebody who has been endorsed by the leader of the Democratic Party, Senator Harry Reid. That person is me, and there's a reason why these Democrats trust me, and there's a reason why I will continue to fight for progressive democratic values here in the state of Nevada and for the 4th Congressional District.
You know, this country is obviously at a crossroads. I think we're seeing it with the presidential race, with what's happening with us being pulled apart and the rhetoric that's going on. And we can answer it in two different ways. We can answer it by picking a scapegoat and being exclusionary and telling everyone to stay out. Or we can do it by working together and setting reforms and reforming our system. I have consistently fought for 23 years in our community, bringing people together and getting things done. I haven't been out in front of cameras, getting attention, running for one office after another. I've rolled up my sleeves. I've brought people together on the ground, and because of my work, thousands of people have a better life. Thousands of veterans are now working again. Homeless children have a shelter to stay in, and kids are graduating from high school and having a chance at a better life. I have always fought for and gotten results for what I believe in. We have some major stresses in our country, particularly when it comes to supporting our seniors with Social Security and Medicare. This is the first year in 40 years that we did not see a cost of living adjustment in Social Security. These are promises that we've made. I live with my mother calls me day in and day out. These are things that I will fight for, and I've proven that I can get results, and I will continue to do that.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody still sticking around. We're into this thing a couple hours, and I haven't seen anybody sneak out the side door, so I'm glad about that. Listen, I think this is about experience. I think this is about your commitment to public service. I was a public servant as a firefighter serving the community for 2.5 decades. And then at the same time, remember our legislature is a part-time legislature. We only meet 120 days every other year. At the same time, I didn't think that was enough, so I tried to serve my community at the legislature. I just want to carry on that tradition of community service in Congress. I care about this state more than anything. I'm not going anywhere. My family's been here now with my kids for 5 generations. I want to continue to serve this state and my community, and this is a way to do that. I think that being able to work with others and pull them together has been something that I've done year in and year out. You remember in the 2011 session, we had a 53% deficit in our budget. You can't get through something like that without talking to folks and listening to folks and bringing them together to come up with a solution that'll get you through that. So I've led during some tough times, and I think that experience will matter in Congress. Thank you.
We have time for just one more question. John?
Well, Mr. Moderator and audience, I think we just heard closing statements. And I think they were wonderful. I would like everybody, when we finish here, to give these candidates a rousing round of applause for their time spent with us. And with that, I make a motion to adjourn.
All righty. Thank you. And remember, June 14th not only is Flag Day, but primary day in Nevada, okay?